To all of us, you're affectionately known as Ralph. However, the only name the Rosh Yeshiva of Nosson Tzvi would use was Rabbi Foyle. So for this evening, we'll call you Rabbi Foyle. When the Yeshiva of Nosson Tzvi was nifter 10 years ago, the finances of Yeshivas Mir Yerushalayim were dangerously in dire straits. At that time, the G'dai Yisrael called upon Rabbi Foyle Herzka, asking him to do what he can to put the yeshiva back on track. Rabbi Foyle stepped forward and accepted the challenge. Gathering his colleagues, the great Machzikei Torah of our times, he set out to accomplish what was asked of him. However, upon successfully completing that mission, he redefined on his own accord that same mission. Like a ship's captain who, after having braved the storm, continued to navigate his ship through the rough seas, Rabbi Foyle continued to invest his great heart, his precious time, his vast energies, and his heaven-sent resources to a totally unpredictable level. Day after day, month after month, and year after year, he outdid himself in carrying the financial burden of the Mir Yeshiva until the present day. Thus, has Rabbi Foyle joined the ranks of that elite group who collectively have carried the 200-year tradition of Mir. In living up to the task given to him by the G'dai Yisrael, Rabbi Foyle also fulfilled another task. The life, the chinuch, and the expressed will of his father, Harav Binyomin, imbued in him a deep-rooted ideal to make Achzok Torah his primary goal in life. Countless times have we heard over the years how your life's course was mapped by the awe-inspiring words of your father, Zechrein Lebrocha, to continue the legacy of his Rebbe and Rosh Yeshiva, Moran Hagaon Harav Binyomin Carlebach. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Yismach Yisrael Ba'oisov. The Zohar in Parshas Pinchos explains, Yismach Yisrael. When a Yid makes a simcha, he should include Oisov, his maker, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in that simcha. And the plural form of Ba'oisov is an indication that the Baal Simcha's parents are also included. Says the Zohar, before HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes to a simcha, he goes to Gan Eden and takes out the neshamas of the Baal Simcha's parents to bring them along. From here it's quite clear that the nachas parents receive is at least as great as the pleasures of Gan Eden. Otherwise, why bring him? Why bring them? Rabbi Foyle, it's not hard to picture your esteemed parents, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak and Rabbi Snester Herzka, and your esteemed in-laws, Rabbi Meir Yitzchak Isaac and Mrs. Chaya Deutsch, enjoying the nachas you and your wife Yenny generate, the nachas that we celebrate tonight. Before the first Herzka wedding, as Rabbi Nosson was preparing to travel to New York, someone approached him and mentioned perhaps it's not necessary for Rosh Yeshiva to undertake the trip. The strain is big. Rabbi Nosson looked at him and said simply, one day it'll pay off. How right he was. It is an honor and it's a privilege to call upon Rabbi Foyle to address this distinguished gathering.
Hagaon Harav Binyomin, Rishus, Rashi Yeshiva, Rabbanim, Talmidei Yeshiva, dear family and friends. The term guest of honor is misleading because it indicates that I am here to receive honor from others. I will accept the term, but not the definition. Instead, I view it as a chance to pay tribute to those who have inspired me. You see, much of what I get credit for has nothing to do with me and everything to do with my parents, a young couple who lived in a tiny apartment in Lakewood more than 70 years ago. They were young in one sense, but old in what they had already experienced. Both of them had endured challenges, but that was not visible to the onlooker. They lived with sacrifice, and getting through each day took resilience and strength, but that too was not visible to the onlooker. In my parents' home, you saw Mesiras Nefesh and the satisfaction that comes with a life connected to Limud HaTorah. Life was not easy, but it was a life filled with purpose and meaning. If there was a theme, a mantra, it was, Ashreinu Matayv Chalkeinu, how lucky we are. Being exposed to the truth early on allowed me to recognize and appreciate what is really MS. I always felt drawn to people who exuded and embodied that same sense of pride and happiness, who lived with the same song of Ashreinu Matayv Chalkeinu that I had seen at my home. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been very good to me. I was zeicher to marry a wife who also grew up in such a home, with parents who exemplified these qualities, allowing us to build a home together using this mantra as its foundation, instilling in our children these very precious values that we both saw at home. I remember the first time I met Reb Nosson Tzvi Zatzal. He exuded that incredible spirit and inner joy. If all you saw was a man who struggled to walk, if all you saw was a man who had difficulty speaking, then you really didn't see him at all. He burned with energy, determination, vision, and so much simchas achayim. If you truly saw him, then you just wanted to be close to him. You wanted to partake in whatever it was that he was doing. As we saw in the video, our relationship started slowly. My dear friend and partner, Howard Zuckerman, Alei Shalom, made the initial introduction. Howard had an eye for greatness, and his admiration for the Rosh Yeshiva was contagious. The Rosh Yeshiva was in Brooklyn one evening and was scheduled to have a meeting, and it got canceled at the last minute. He was clearly under pressure, and immediately with my wife's blessing and encouragement, we invited him to our home when we asked some of our friends to come, and our friends and colleagues came together to help the yeshiva. That was the beginning of this relationship close to 30 years ago. It's difficult for me to express what it was about that was so captivating about Reb Nosson Tzvi. But I will let the following story speak for itself. In the late 1990s, the Rosh Yeshiva's physical well-being was already beginning to deteriorate. But he somehow radiated incredible power and strength, delivering daily shiurim, a weekly shiur klali, and numerous chaburas. He learned b'chavrusa with anyone that asked him, and said shmuzin in 2 languages every Friday, all while presiding over and carrying the financial burden of the yeshiva with thousands of talmidim. The annual Chanukah Masiba was a rare opportunity for the talmidim as they gathered together in one room with their beloved Rebbe. When he came into the dining room, the walls shook with the song of the talmidim. The Rosh Yeshiva slowly made his way to the head table. He sat down and looked around with that special glow we all remember, his eyes dancing with simchas achayim. He tried to speak, but as hard as he tried, his body failed him, and he was unable to. But as those who witnessed the scene recall, his loving smile was better than any drasha. The Rosh Yeshiva, Reb Yitzchak Ezrachi Shlita, did get up to speak, but he did not speak long. Instead, he expressed the question that hung over the room. What is the secret of Reb Nosson Tzvi? His appeal, his bond, his connection and effect on the talmidim. How could it be that a physically sickly man was so vibrant and strong? Reb Yitzchak quoted a pasuk in Zechariah, Lo b'chayil, v'lo b'koach, ki im beruchi, am Hashem tzvakos. Not through armies and not through might, but through my spirit, says Hashem. That was the answer, ki im beruchi, with my spirit. When the spirit is strong, then there is no need for might, for the spirit is stronger than any force outside of that. Reb Nosson Tzvi was the Ish HaRuach, and the spirit still fills the holy walls of the yeshiva every single day. Remember, dear friends, remember that dark day when we awoke to learn that Reb Nosson Tzvi had left us. It was a hammer blow to the heart. The Rosh Yeshiva was gone. It seemed inconceivable. where Reb Nosson Tzvi's life had been a message that the impossible is possible. And what happened next reflected that. It made no sense. It still makes no sense. Ki im beruchi. Look around tonight. Take a good look around this room. Or better yet, try to make it a point when you're in Eretz Yisrael to walk up the stairs of the Mir Yeshiva during First Seder and look around that room. And you will feel that you have to make a bracha. Sha'asa nisim lavaisenu v'yamim aheim bazman hazeh. It's a nes. And tonight we say, thank you Hashem for that nes. Dear Reb Nosson Tzvi, let me tell you what has transpired over the last 10 years. Yischus, that atmosphere that you created, Rosh Yeshiva, hovers over the yeshiva like one of the Anani HaKavod. The yeshiva into which you breathe life created not only Yisachas and Zvulins, but something else as well. Talmidim who learned under you, and even those who had not have the schus to learn under you, have stepped forward, raising money with the focus and determination of Zvulins, but yet with the Ahavas HaTorah of Yisachar. Fueled not by just fundraising goals, but by pure Ahavas HaTorah, driven by their love for their yeshiva, as they too are all B'nai Torah. You would be so proud of those ambassadors, young Balabatim who represent the yeshiva with such distinction. When my phone rings late at night, my face lights up because I know it's the Mir guys, whether it's Adrian, Ezra, Zevi, Davi, calling to report on their latest fundraising successes. Rosh Yeshiva, over the last 10 years, those Talmidim have transformed the Achzakas HaTorah landscape. They created a circle of friends of this yeshiva, and by extension, other yeshivas that would make you so proud. People experiencing that special satisfaction and sense of fulfillment for the schus of just supporting Torah. To you, Reb Nosson Tzvi, it made no difference which yeshiva, as long as it was pure Torah. It made no difference what the product was and who was selling it, as long as it was true Torah. In discussing Achzakas HaTorah, I have to mention what a schus it is for me to share this honor with my dear friend, Reb Shlomo Yehuda. Like you, Reb Nosson Tzvi, he thinks so much bigger than any other people, fusing generosity and vision with such heart. When others step back during difficult times, you, Shlomo Yehuda, take your giving to the next level, funding extra stipends and additional programs when they are needed most. That's why you are Chad B'Dorah, one in our generation. You obligate each one and every one of us to do so much more, because you are always doing so much more. Rosh Yeshiva, from the moment the Shiva ended, we no longer had the luxury to mourn, because the Avodah was too great. It has been your Rebbetzin, the Aim HaYeshiva, Rebbetzin Leah, who inspires us with her seichel and her nobility. Reb Nosson Tzvi, it is your Bechar, Moran HaRav Ablezer Yudel, the Rosh Yeshiva Shlita, who has led us through this extraordinary decade. He immediately reflected your courage and valor, rising up to his position and again. There have been many challenges, financial upheavals, tragedies, wars. And a yeshiva that didn't just survive COVID, it transformed it into an opportunity to create real Ahavas Torah. During the course of the last decade, Reb Eliezer Yudel has continued growing the yeshiva with many new Batei Midrashim and Chaburas, elevating the yeshiva steadily and diligently, including new programs and continuous uninterrupted Torah learning, and encouraging the writing of Chidushei Torah for hundreds of Talmidim, accomplishing this all by giving of his heart and his soul. And as the Yeshiva stood here and we saw all those volumes, Ashrecha, what we have so much to be grateful for. The Gemara in Megillah refers to Abayis Hagadol, a great house. There is a machlokes between Reb Yochanan and Reb Yeshua ben Levi. With one saying, it refers to a house in which Megadol by Torah, and one saying Megadol by Tefillah. Either way, we see that the term Gadol does not just mean to be great. It means the ability to create greatness. A Gadol doesn't merely rise to greatness, but he also makes others great along with him. That was you, Reb Nassim Tzvi. We know your story, how you arrived in Eretz Yisrael on a visit at the age of 14. And were enthralled by your great uncle, Reb Eliezer Yudel, who wanted you to stay and learn Torah. Your parents weren't enthusiastic, but on Rosh Hashanah, your mother heard the Kriyas HaTorah, the story of the Akedah, and it stirred her. She understood that it was a timeless call for a Yiddish mama, and she agreed to let you stay the winter, a decision that altered the course of history. Many years later, after the story was well known, someone asked you, we know the Rosh Hashiva's mother's Mesiras Nefesh was, but what was the Rosh Hashiva's Mesiras Nefesh? What did the Rosh Hashiva have to give up to stay and learn Torah? Your answer, Reb Nassim Tzvi, was, I sent my Cubs cap back home. In that decision and that answer, you taught us a lesson. To create a change, you have to be invested. To give not just your money or time, but your heart. You have to give yourself. And that, Rosh Hashiva, is what we see in the Mir today every day. We see it in the Talmidim, in the Young Alumni, in the Magidei Shurim, and in the Rosh Hashiva. People who give their hearts to the Torah. And this is how the yeshiva inspires that kind of devotion from its yedidim, its friends. We give our hearts, and there is nothing that makes us prouder or happier. This is a room filled with people who made that decision, each in their own way, not just to write out a check and sign their name, but to continuously contemplate and reflect on what they can do and what they should do. Grateful for the privilege of transforming mere money into nitzchias. It is the greatest deal imaginable, and everyone in this room feels it. So too, I am grateful to see how my partners and colleagues at Meridian have integrated the spirit of giving back into the workplace, and how they serve as outstanding models of integrity and principle. And I thank each and every one of them for allowing me this opportunity to be here and spend the last 10 years doing this Avodah HaKodesh. I recently heard a story from the Mashgiach Rav Dan Segel Shlita, who actually was one of the people that called me and asked me to take on the achrayas. And I mentioned this many times. It was Mr. Reuben Schron who said he stands behind me during that time. And I spoke to Rav Dan today, and I told him that we were going to have the dinner, and he wished me hatzlacha. And when I couldn't decide to take this honor, I asked him if I should do it. He said, you have to do it. In the recent story, I told him I was repeating the story, and he said, Rafal, say the story with fire. It was during the elections of the Polish parliament. The Chafetz Chaim directed Askanim to create a political party with a slate of Torah true candidates. The community leaders explained to him that they knew the numbers and there's no chance of the Torah community winning even a single seat. The Chafetz Chaim was a very practical man, and he knew this as well. Yet he maintained his position. He wanted a party of Shomer Torah mitzvahs. Baffled, they asked him why he wanted to run candidates who would ultimately lose. And the Chafetz Chaim explained, tens of thousands of Yidden would vote for the party. He said, Yidden from all over joining forces under its banner, and that itself is a victory. Because even if they would not win the election, they would still be sending a resounding message to the world that there are tens of thousands of Yidden who are still holding fast to the Torah. There are tens of thousands of loyal soldiers announcing the Rebbeinu Shalom is nicht bankrupt. Hashem is not bankrupt, keviyachol. My day job is in corporate America. Each day I see how the world has fallen a little lower. People confused and clueless, unable to even locate a moral compass anymore. But here in this yeshiva, in this room, in this Heilige Asifa, we cry out the opposite. The Eibishter is nicht bankrupt. Like Rav Dunn said, say it with fire. Look how wealthy he is. Look what he has. This room is our answer to the world outside. So I conclude, dear Rosh Yeshiva Reb Nosson Tzvi, by saying thank you. Thank you for letting me into this realm, the special world of the Mir Yeshiva, for letting me touch the coattails of this army, the Ingalite and Bachram of the Yeshiva. And thank you for showing us what Ashreinu means, just how lucky we are. May your zchus accompany us and our families at every step. Look out for our family, for your yeshiva, the Torah world, and for your dear, dear friends all gathered here and around the world. May Mashiach come speedy, and when he comes, you will once again walk up the aisle to the front of the Beis Medrash, prepared to say Sheklali as you used to. You will face a full Beis Medrash of Gedalim, Rosh Yeshiva, and B'nai Torah. You will be so proud of what you see. And we all can't wait to see you smile once again. Thank you.